Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We're very excited to be talking to you guys about ITSM tool consolidation and how you could simplify your ITSM operations with Atlassian Cloud. So, this is part of a new series of webinars that we're doing here at Service Rocket. And I've got myself and Alex today to run you through the content that we have to share. So why don't we start with some brief introductions? So for those of you that are listening in, please feel free to say hello in the chat. Tell us about yourself and where you're coming from. So I'm Johnny, and I work as a solution architect at Service Rocket, helping our customers solve their business challenges using the Atlassian products. And I'm based in Sydney. And with me is Alex. Alex, you want to say hello?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. My name is Alex Ho. I'm also part of the solution architecture team, one of the solution architects at Service Rocket. I'm also based in Sydney, and my role is about designing solutions for our customers using the Atlassian tools. But particularly making sure that they're not only practical and scalable, but also fit for purpose.
Thanks, Alex. So before we dive in, I just want to give a bit of an introduction about Service Rocket for those on the session who may not have heard of us before or have worked with us before. So we are a leading provider of tech-enabled services, and we've been here for more than 20 years, partnering up with Atlassian, doing what we do best. But the most important thing about us is that we've always got your back. So Service Rocket is proud to be an Atlassian Platinum Solution Partner, and we have expertise in cloud and ITSM, and we can help you guys in a variety of ways, from advisory to implementation to training and also support as well. So for those in the audience, I'm just going to put a link into the chat. So if you need to get in touch with us anytime, feel free to contact us. Just pop that little link there. All right, so let's take a look at what we have in store for today. Now, for a bit of quick housekeeping, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to put them into the chat and we'll be happy to address them at the end of our presentation. Now, we're here to talk about ITSM tool consolidation, and we're going to focus on three key points here. So first is streamline operations, how we can simplify our IT infrastructure and reduce tool sprawl and operational load, and how we can also create a more enhanced user experience. So a more seamless user experience to make daily tasks a breeze for your team. And then the last benefit that we'll talk about in terms of consolidating tools is how we can have more efficient data reporting, making data reporting and collaboration easier than before.
That sounds great, John. In fact, these key areas relate to some of our most common requests we're getting from our customers today, whether they be small, medium, large organizations, and even across different industries. So it'd be great, I think, to put a spotlight on these and discuss some of the strategies, that you've mentioned on those topics with some real life examples.
Yeah, so the first point is about reducing clutter and tool sprawl, but I guess we should probably first explain what we mean by tool sprawl and how organizations end up in that situation.
Certainly, Johnny. I think perhaps an analogy might help. Today there is a growing trend around us in our society on keeping neat and tidy, reducing clutter. The goal is really to ease maintenance so you can have more time to do, the important things, right? Because who wants to spend endless amount of time tidying up and keeping clean and dealing with that? I mean, when was the last time we all did a spring clean? There are even television shows now dedicated to educating people and providing strategy to help declutter. So this notion is really not too different from our business environments, where there may be too many tools. There may be, tools that are not designed to work well together. And, also it can take a lot of effort to keep them running, not to mention supporting your users who are using those tools as well. So that's what we mean by, tool sprawl, and it is increasingly a problem. And IT, unfortunately, is faced with the task to deal with, tool sprawl and to reduce the clutter for the organization. Now, let's take a moment to see what a typical organization's IT landscape may look like in terms of their enterprise tools. Tools in the organization are largely driven by what the organization needs, what we call fit for purpose a lot of times. And of course, the setup and ongoing maintenance costs to run those tools as well. Some of those more common tools used by organizations that some of you may be quite familiar with include those for managing work, for storing knowledge, providing support, managing customers, and of course your communication tools as well. So there is an extensive list of tools out there in the marketplace, and I think, Johnny, we're really spoiled for choice these days with regards to these tools. I mean, organizations can have up to 20 tools in their tool set, right? And while smaller organizations may have less due to costs, but they too are not exempt from the tool sprawl phenomenon we've just mentioned. So I think we've got a slide here, where we can take a quick snapshot of the typical IT landscape to show, what the myriad of tools might be and might look like in a tool set. So in large organizations, you can even get a sort of different tools which are designed for the same purpose to coexist in the tool stack as different teams and departments. A lot of them have their own preferences, which tools they like to use.
That's a lot of logos so far, and we're barely scratching the surface with that list. I reckon I've used at least 70% of the apps that have been listed there over the course of my career. So Alex, how do organizations end up with so many different tools and apps in the first place?
Well, there's a lot of potential reasons behind this nowadays, with a lot of vendors moving to the cloud and towards a subscription model, where essentially in a subscription economy, it's very easy for a team within an organization to just sign up for a plan and get going, right? So we see that a lot. So what happens is your software development team might, for example, sign up for Jira software, and then your design team might be exploring some tools and decide, hey, we want to get a Miro subscription. And all of this often happens without having to go through IT.
It's very different from the traditional top-down approach where IT decides on the tool stack for the organization, and it could be a multi-million-dollar purchase, and everyone is locked into using that set of tools.
Exactly. And these old school tools and applications were often server-based, if you remember, right? So you actually had to install it on your own servers, and you had to get your IT team involved because of that. Whereas now cloud and all your SaaS platforms these days has really made the process much faster and much easier. I'm going to pause for a moment and share a little story, which is really relevant, I think. I remember working with an organization to consolidate their server tools in the cloud, into the cloud, I should say. And, there was this one development team who literally had a mini server sitting under one of the desks running their favorite development software. And you can imagine what a surprise that would have been for IT when they found out. Another reason companies end up with a lot of applications is through acquisition. And we're seeing quite a lot of that happening in our in our landscape at the moment. A company gets acquired by a new parent organization, might actually be using a different tool stack. Imagine a small startup that's using Jira Service Management as their ITSM solution. They get acquired by a parent company and might be using ServiceNow, for example. So now you have two platforms within the same organizations that essentially does a similar thing.
Thanks for sharing your insights and for that little story. Now, to me, the notion of giving teams the autonomy to pick their own tools seems like a good thing, but why is that considered a problem?
Yeah, that's a good question. Having many great tools is not so much of a problem, but when the costs of managing and configuring those tools outweigh the return on those tools' value. Not to mention it can impact your user experience and get in the way of getting things done. Now that would not be ideal. So you have to consider also who is responsible for those tools. Sometimes the IT team doesn't want to manage a particular tool simply because it's only used by a very small handful of people, like a small team, right?
Yeah, I've seen that before. A situation where I was talking to someone in a particular department, and their enterprise IT team would only manage Microsoft related applications. So the person I was talking to had subscribed to a SaaS based application, and initially it was just for their team, 10 people or so. And it got so popular when it ballooned to over 150 users, that person found themselves having to manage all those licenses for people from different cost centers. And it was a major pain point for them during renewal time to try and figure out who was paying for which license. And that wasn't their day job.
It sounds like the knowledge silo was created there. This is probably another common problem if your tools are not well integrated, or if access and licenses are fragmented. So let's bring it back to an Atlassian example. Like we have a development team using Jira to track features and bugs, and you have just released a new app, right? Unfortunately, there are bugs and customers are now reporting issues to the IT support team, which has to support the app as well. So in a fragmented landscape, the IT team might be using ServiceNow, say, and your developers do not have access to that system. Vice versa. The IT team doesn't have access to Jira to report the bug or add comments. So what they have to do is essentially email a developer and say, hey, I think we have a bug, or we have some comments to add about the app release. Now, as both parties try to collaborate, the IT support agent, right, is in this particular position where have to constantly relay messages back and forth between the customer and the development team. So it doesn't exactly make for a good experience for any party. And plus, your customers kept waiting all this time, right? Which is not ideal.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like an effective way to work. Like I've had to relay information between engineering and customers as well. And I would run up to people's desks to ask them for an update. But now with people working from home, you don't have that option anymore. So that sounds like a productivity problem then. Productivity would take a hit.
Absolutely. And the poor service to the customer as well.
So that's some great points that you've shared. Now, I never used to think that having lots of tools would cause such problems. So what can we do to consolidate our tools then?
Well, for starters, you could consider moving many of your tools to Atlassian Cloud. If I continue with the previous example I've mentioned, um, instead of using ServiceNow or another platform like Sharewell or Freshdesk or ITSM, you could use Jira Service Management, right? Your dev teams are already using Jira software. So why not then move your ITSM to the Atlassian platform and give your IT and dev teams a more seamless experience to collaborate? Because this is where Atlassian Cloud does it really well. So a lot of business teams might also be storing documents in Google Docs or Box or even SharePoint. Why not consider Confluence, right? So between JSM, Service Management, Jira Software, and Confluence, which is all on Atlassian Cloud, you've already covered development, knowledge management, and documentation, as well as your IT functions within your business.
That's a great example of the power of the Atlassian platform. So Alex, tell us more about the benefits of consolidating on the Atlassian platform in the cloud, particularly with Jira Service Management and ITSM.
Well, let's start with the most obvious one, Johnny, the costs. Less tools effectively means less operating costs. We're not just considering the licenses here. Well, you have to consider things like maintenance and upgrades. Although with cloud, upgrades can be considered a thing of the past. So there you have it, folks. Like make sure you move to the cloud, right? No need to worry about your upgrades or having to do your own patching for security vulnerabilities. And there's also the cost of training your users, which I know, Johnny, it's kind of in your department.
Yeah, that was my domain. And from experience, training is often something that's overlooked. People just get thrown into the deep end and told to use this tool, and they're expected to just figure it out. And I find that it's hard to get buy-in when that happens.
Yeah, exactly. When you have one platform, it's much easier to train your staff to use it more effectively. And that effectively leads to an easy onboarding process for new hires as well. And because you're on one platform, there's seamless integration between your ITSM development and your business functions.
I think you've got a demo to show us regarding that integration, right?
Yes, I do. That's coming in a little bit later, though. The other benefit I wanted to point out is that when you consolidate, you also have less vendors to deal with when it comes to negotiating your renewals, right? So this is something that kind of happens behind the scene, but it's really important. With tool sprawl and a fractured ecosystem, if you have Jira and ServiceNow and SharePoint, for example, come renewal time, you have to deal with each one of those vendors, not to mention perhaps multiple solution partners on top of that as well.
Yeah, your renewal team or procurement team will thank you when it comes to renewal time. Now, I want to move on to the next point about how tool consolidation can enhance the user experience. So what have you got in store for us there, Alex?
So let's go back to the example that I mentioned earlier about IT and engineering being on different platforms. So the diagram we have kind of shows us kind of what that scenario looks like. So IT is on ServiceNow, and they've had a request come in from a customer about a feature not working. Now, if IT wants to escalate to engineering, who are on Jira, they have to switch systems. Even worse, they might not even have access to Jira. So they have to call email, as we mentioned earlier. And engineering doesn't have the visibility into the customer support ticket either. They have to rely on the IT agent to relay that information back and forth. So that's not a good experience on either side.
Right. Now, but if everyone was on the same platform, that improves things, right? So if everyone's on the Atlassian platform, that makes things a lot better. So why don't we see that in action?
Yeah, let's do that. So I'm just going to share my.
I'll stop my share and I'll pass it to you, Alex.
Thanks, Johnny. Okay. Can you see the customer portal there, Johnny?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sharing my screen here, and what we're showing is the lovely customer portal on Atlassian Cloud. So there's a lot I could be talking about, but I really want to focus on that use case that we have. So we have IT where we may raise someone might raise a ticket through the IT service desk portal and say, "Hey, I have a problem. I want to report that," and I might have my printer has a problem, right? So more details here, and you can easily fill out the form, and very quickly you can get that submitted to the IT service desk as a service desk customer. So some of the fields as well might be tapped into what you have in your CMDB or your assets database, which is really great. So here I'm going to select a few fields and say send. Let's just quickly create this ticket to show us. And once the ticket has been created, from the agent point of view, just going to refresh the screen. This is the queue from the agent side. And you can see that the ticket has quickly popped up there with the information. I'm just going to go in there. And the agent, what he or she might do is say, hey, I'm going to just assign this ticket to myself right here. And I'm going to start working on this ticket in progress, right? And as they're working through the the ticket. There's a couple of things. There's like knowledge articles that might be really helpful, for the service desk team. But as an agent, I might decide, hey, I actually need to escalate this to another team that's outside of the service desk, and I could link the ticket very easily. So I can create a link ticket to say, hey, I need to engage engineering support. So let me create a link ticket this way. And some of the information automatically gets copied over. You can add more. I can say create a ticket. Now, this ticket now sits in the place where the engineering support team works, right? And they can see the ticket. So I've got the link ticket here. I'm just going to go to that ticket right now. You can see how quickly and easily. So from the engineering support's point of view, which has been escalated to them, they could work on the ticket. They could add comments, and then they can resolve the ticket when they finish, right? So this is now done. Now going back to IT support view, they can see the ticket has been resolved, right? Automatically, like they don't need to kind of go and look for the updates and things like that. So you get comments automatically added, which is a great experience and is well integrated. So nice and easy. So that's a demonstration of the use case, Johnny.
Thank you, Alex. Let me bring back my screen share now. Yeah, so that was a very good, simple showcase, Alex. I definitely see some productivity improvements there with how IT and dev teams can work together on the one platform, on the Atlassian platform. So no need to log into a different system, and you can see those updates automatically. Now, is it really as easy as just migrating your ITSM to Jira Service Management and bringing your tools into the Atlassian platform? Is that all you need to do, though? Like, are there some other handy tips you can share about creating that seamless user experience?
Yeah. So, in short, like, yes, it is really that easy as the demo has shown. But of course, there are other considerations as well. If you want to create that seamless, frictionless experience for your business users. One very good example that comes to mind that many teams get caught out is making sure you keep your access of the tools relatively open, right? And this is where Atlassian Cloud does that really well. And then there's a whole lot of security permissioning sort of features that you can add when you need it. So, don't go, I guess the suggestion is don't go like locking down your Jira software projects, your service projects, or your Confluence spaces to specific teams. Try to keep them open, because otherwise, even if you consolidated your tools all on Atlassian Cloud, you can still run the risk of having people end up in knowledge and collaboration silos, right? So that's kind of important to remember. You should make it as easy as possible. I think that's the principle for people to share content with each other, and that will help drive collaboration and efficiency.
Absolutely. I can't tell you how many times I've been frustrated when I try and share something like a Confluence page or maybe even like a record in our CRM. And the other person goes, sorry, I can't see it. I don't have the permissions. And then if I can't give them access, I have to go tell them to raise a ticket with IT. So very frustrating.
That's right. That slows down work because now you're waiting on IT, right, to provide access. And then there's a bottleneck there. And you also end up with just having to tell the other person, like, or email them or find some other ways, whereas they could easily have that information that they can just read.
And I guess the reason why so many systems are locked down is because companies are also trying to just save costs by minimizing the number of licenses they use. So they have so many tools and the costs are adding up. But when you consolidate your tools, like by moving to the Atlassian platform, you should already have a cost saving there as well. So there shouldn't be as much need to keep everything so locked down. Now, I want to bring us to the third point about our tool consolidation and the other major benefit, and that is the data reporting. So I'm not a data engineer or scientist, but I can guess that if you're using a lot of different platforms for ITSM, and for development. And then you have additional tools for your business teams that it takes a lot of effort to get the right reports.
Yeah, talking about reports, Johnny, like have you ever tried to generate a consolidated report of data across multiple systems? Right. I think a lot of us have been there before, or have at least seen it. And most of the time, it ends up in a spreadsheet, right? Gets massaged and it gets put into with the data that people need. The problem with this is that it takes a lot of time and effort to gather the data, massage the data, and then summarize it in a way that is useful and required by your stakeholders.
Yeah, and I suppose that's also a risk in that people might make decisions without having a full picture of what's happening. Like if someone only has access to one or two systems out of 10, they're not seeing everything they need.
Yeah. And again, that's the knowledge silo problem again, right? And that's usually a consequence of tool sprawl, a fragmented ecosystem of tools. Everyone has access to a different tool, for their own purpose. Now, reporting I want to point out, is a really crucial part of ITSM. Without an understanding of how well you're delivering your IT services and what the customer experience might look like and where the bottlenecks and blind spots are, it is almost impossible to implement changes to improve your IT service delivery and governance as well.
So my question now is, how do you get a consolidated view to understand what's happening for IT to manage its services?
Yeah, that's a great question. With Atlassian Cloud, it's like having your teams share a common workspace, right? Everyone in the office, where we can easily work together, which makes getting a consolidated view so easy. So on Atlassian Cloud, you have access to really useful out-of-the-box reports for your service management projects. You can also easily customize reports and dashboards with information that's tailored for your teams.
Yeah, one thing I found in my experience is to customize a dashboard specifically for your IT teams to give them the right insights into areas that need attention. Now, there's some very easy to use gadgets in Jira dashboards that can quickly provide you with an overview of like your service desk operations. Like there's the average age gadget to see how long it is taking to get your tickets resolved. There's also created versus resolved to see the trend in how quickly your team is getting through those tickets. And these are just some of the out of the box gadgets available to add to your dashboards.
Yeah, you can actually get a lot more options from the marketplace as well, right? So if you have something more specific you might need, why not check out the Atlassian marketplace, right, to extend the features on your platform. There are many great options before you consider building your own data pipeline solutions and those third-party tools and ETL processes, which gets really complicated.
So this is a good segue to introduce our audience to Atlassian Analytics. And this is a great, fantastic new feature in Atlassian Cloud that offers simple and flexible ways to visualize your data across all of your Atlassian products. So Alex, why don't you take us in and show us what it looks like?
Yeah, thanks, Johnny. Why don't we jump in and see what it looks like? So just
I'll
gonna share
pass
my
the screen
screen.
sharing.
Thank you, Johnny. Okay. So just very quick, I guess, visual demonstration. Here we're looking at Atlassian Analytics, and there's a couple of things I kind of want to point out, right? So, there's a lot of dashboards that capabilities that you can quickly create, and the idea is to ensure there's key metrics in there and shared and visible to the whole team. So there's a lot of times your teams very siloed, have their own dashboards looking at different things. So the power of the analytics is really to bring everyone together. So earlier on, I mentioned about project-based reporting. There's a lot of great capabilities within your service projects. And with analytics, you're actually able to go beyond that, and you're able to look at all your service management projects across the organizations. And plus, if you want to see Jira software and other types of project as well. And it's to show you like what's happening within the organization around the work that's going on. So, that is particularly powerful for your IT to be able to kind of be able to get the right visibility on the data and react quickly. So I'm just going to go and say create a dashboard. And the other thing is I want to show is you can use a template, and there is a ton of templates that's available. Really, really good templates that's available depending on your use case, right? And furthermore, like beyond the templates, you can customize and add things to these dashboards that you want to see. And I'm just going to go back to this particular dashboard here and just scroll down to give you a sense of some of the information that can be available for your teams, right? The other feature, lastly, I want to point out is sometimes when you look at a dashboard, you're like, hey, that's great. I'm just going to bring a conversation over to someone. We need to have a chat about some of these stats. With Atlassian Analytics, you're able to add a comment right here on the dashboard and start collaborating, around some of this data that you're seeing, right? So this really brings people together to be able to kind of use the data that's presented and available to them. So really powerful. So recommend, you checking this out.
All right. So unfortunately, that's all we have time for today. But before wrapping up, I'd like to thank you for your time, Alex, and for sharing your expertise with us about ITSM tool consolidation. And thanks for joining us, everyone. As I mentioned earlier, this is part of a new series of webinars that we're doing at Service Rocket. So keep an eye out for more of these. And now we will open up to questions. So if you have any questions, pop them into the chat for us.
Got a couple of comments there, Johnny. There's no questions at the moment. So,
all right, I'll just leave it on for another minute or two, see if anyone else has any comments or questions. But if not, then thank you guys for attending our webinar. This the recording that we made will be available as well. So if you want to have a look at that afterwards or have a look at the content again.
Yeah, and if you think that this is particularly useful for other people that as well, please share that once the recording becomes available.
Okay, doesn't look like there's any questions from anyone, so I think that'll conclude our session for today. So thanks everyone for joining our webinar, and hope to see you again next time.
Thank you, everyone. Great to have you here today. We'll see you next time.